What's up, Rockies fans? This is Mac Wilcox, staff writer for Purple Row, again checking in with you on Purple Row's YouTube channel. And we're celebrating the holidays this time around. We're doing something a little bit different. This is going to be a bit of a departure from the typical YouTube shorter videos or discussions that we do. It's still going to be very much a discussion, but it's going to be different than what you're used to. So this is obviously the holiday season. We're talking to you hopefully here right before the Christmas holiday rolls around. And that's a time that people usually spend with their families and hanging out with their loved ones, and I'm doing the same thing here. So today I'm actually going to be discussing the Hall of Fame ballots with the person that got me involved with baseball in the first place, and I'm actually here sitting with my father, Michael.
What's up, man?
What's up?
How you doing?
I'm good, man.
It's good to be here.
You stoked?
Yeah, I am. I'm going to have some fun. This is going to be great.
This is going to be cool, man. Yeah, so this is something we decided to do. My dad got me involved with baseball. I mean, well, shoot, when did you start watching ball originally?
Probably 5, 6, 7 years old.
For sure.
I would have the White Sox games on, and, you're a little kid. You just watch what your mom or dad was watching.
For sure. Because where'd you grow up originally?
I grew up in the south side of Chicago, which meant I was a White Sox fan.
For sure.
But I always liked the Cubs, too, because both of those teams back in those days were not very good.
For sure.
And there's just a lot of great Cub players. So,
right.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Colorado when I was 7, so that was in the year 2000.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then we started going to Rockies games.
Started going to Rockies games. Yeah.
Right. But then you and I went we went to a big event when I was 12.
We flew back to the World Series where they played Houston.
The White Sox did.
That's right, where the White Sox played Houston.
In 2005.
And that was game 2 that we went to, the World Series. Fantastic game.
For sure.
Best baseball game I've ever been to.
For sure.
And, it was a great time. Great time.
But since then, it's been pretty much all Rockies, at least for me.
Right.
And now you live out here, where we're recording in our actual professional studio, which is my parents' kitchen. So, this is a high-quality environment to do this little discussion in. And this is where?
We're in Peekskill, New York.
Right. And so now you've pretty much completely sort of turned over a new leaf, and you're pretty much locked in with the Yankees.
Yeah, so, I mean, I've always liked the Yankees. I know a lot about their history.
For sure.
The ballpark is just about a 30-minute train ride from here. I'll always be loyal to the White Sox. If the White Sox are playing the Yankees, then I would just have to sit it out.
For sure.
Okay. So, but yeah, right now I would say I'm down with the Yanks for sure.
So when that inevitable Rockies-Yankees World Series happens here, we'll be split. I'm kidding. The Rockies aren't playing the Yankees in the World Series.
Well, you know what, though? We had a lot of great times at Rockies games.
It's true. 100%.
And it's very hard for me to ever cheer against the Rockies, too, frankly.
For sure.
Yeah.
And one of the players that you and I really got attached to as the Rockies, kind of became our new home team is one of the guys we're going to talk about here. So let's kind of get into it, man.
Okay.
And we're talking specifically, so my dad and I love to talk about stats and players that have come and gone and really get into the specifics of who we saw growing up and who is going to be next up in the Hall of Fame. So that's what we're talking today is the Hall of Fame ballot for 2023. So all kinds of names on here that people are very excited to see, get, a first-time opportunity, or some players that are on some of their last eligible years on the ballot. But the guy that obviously all the Colorados are very excited about, and I as a staff writer for Purple Row, I'm hoping gets in, is Todd Helton. So we'll start with Helton. I won't even give my opinion yet because I think mine will probably be pretty, biased or obvious. Mm-hmm. So Todd Helton in your mind? Take familial ties completely out of it, but just as an old school steam head, what do you think? Is Todd Helton a Hall of Famer?
Yes.
Why?
Yes. I've got his stats up here. The Great Baseball Reference.
It's awesome.
And if you look at his years from 98 to 2003, actually 2004, he was a monster. Mm-hmm. Listen to the RBI totals for these years, 97, 113, 147, 146, 109, 117, 96. Okay, those are just those, what's that? So that's 1998 to 2003. In a couple of those years, one of those years he had 216 hits. Another year he had 209. He had 39 doubles. Another year he had 59 doubles. So he one year, what was it, 2000, he hit 372. Mm-hmm. Now I know that some of these stats are probably inflated because of Coors Field, but even so, if you hit 372 at home, you could hit, 215 on the road, which I don't think he did, and that's a pretty good year. So all things considered, he is 20th all time in doubles, and on the surface you might say 20th, but when you figure all these guys that played the game, number 20, not so bad. How many All-Star games? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 All-Star games. A bit fewer than many Hall of Famers. But still, again, I go back to those monster years where for that period, he was absolutely one of the best hitters in the game. And he was an outstanding first baseman.
Yep.
So because of those stats, while he was in the league, especially at his prime, not only was he one of the most feared hitters in the game, he was an outstanding first baseman.
Yep.
So part of my reason for putting somebody or feeling someone should be in the Hall of Fame is, can this person stand with the all-time greats? And in Hilton's case, based on these years, I'd say yes. Yes, so he's in the Hall of Fame for me.
Wow. This is what's cool about doing these things while I got my phone next to me. The Blue Jays and the Diamondbacks, as you and I are talking, just made a pretty wild trade that's going to send Dalton Varsho to the Blue Jays that includes some prospects. That's crazy. That's wild. Keep an eye on Purple Row for that. That's going to be something that we're going to talk about a little bit. But anyway, that's pretty wild. So do you think maybe that part of the reason some people might not consider Helton in the same echelon as some of these upper-level hitters at this time period is because he was overshadowed at a time where, like, slugging and home runs and RBIs were coming in abundance, right? Because you got Sosa and McGuire and these other players that are, peeling the cover off the ball in these at-bats at that same time period, right? Is that why Helton is overshadowed? Is it purely a Coors Field thing? Like, what's the...
I definitely think Coors Field, there's a lot of bias against Coors Field. Absolutely.
From a Yankees fan, to be clear. From somebody who follows the Yankees, like, you're even admitting that there is a Coors Field bias.
Absolutely. Well, I think people definitely have biases against guys that play at Coors Field because they inflated it. Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. But I also think that, to be fair, I think it's probably much more difficult to play at that altitude than it is everywhere else. Yes.
Okay. So you think so? Then, do you think that Todd Helton is deserving of being in the Hall of Fame? Do you think he will get in? As you and I are talking, this is on the 23rd. You and I are talking, so whenever this video goes up, we might have different results, obviously then. But like, Helton's getting some votes. We've also seen some ballots where he's left off. We've seen blank ballots. We've seen a Scott Rowland only ballot. Yeah. Like, is it finally his time?
I think it's time, but in my opinion, do I think he'll make it? Probably not.
This is his 5th year on the ballot.
Yeah,
if that helps.
Not.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Okay,
yeah.
Because of that bias.
I think so.
For sure. So then, I guess the last one on Helton specifically is like, do you think it's significant more for him to make it in because of who he is as a player on his own, or for the Rockies organization? Because Larry Walker goes in as the first Rocky.
That's right.
Right? But Helton would be the first player to go in the Hall of Fame, if he were to make it, that played his entire career at Coors Field.
Right.
So is it more significant for him as a player based on his own stats, or is it more significant for the franchise of the Rockies if he were to make it in?
I don't want to sidestep the question, but honestly, I think it's both.
Okay.
I think it's both. I think that, in my humble opinion, in the history of the Rockies organization, Todd Helton is right now, hands down, the best player that ever played for the Rockies. I don't think he's the greatest Rocky ever because he played his entire career for the Rockies. Nolan Arenado stayed with the Rockies and played his entire career with the Rockies. Maybe he'd be the greatest Rocky of all time. But right now, I think it's Todd Helton.
That's one that Rockies fans are still touchy about. But yeah, definitely.
But I would say, it's unfortunate he never was able to win a World Series. Okay. And just a side note, I still maintain that had the Rockies played their World Series against Boston without all that time off, okay, I don't think they would have got swept.
Okay.
I think they would have at least won a game or two. They might have even won it. I don't know. But I think all that time off just really hurt it between
which
series.
Obviously he was an integral part of that team.
Right. Yeah,
and
he
that success.
Was. He absolutely was. So, but yeah, he deserves it.
Dig it. Okay. So Todd Helton Hall of Famer from a Yankees fan. Dig it.
Yeah.
So pivot away from Todd Helton. We're going to talk some more about this ballot. Okay. And I know there are some players that, you and I have watched for a while, and I know you have some strong opinions about, one way or the other. So I guess I'll just straight up ask you, of this Hall of Fame ballot, who should be in?
Well, I'm going to surprise you.
Okay.
I'm going to surprise you. Scott Rowland.
He is going in.
Should be in the Hall of Fame.
Because you and I talked about this offline before we recorded, and I know you were kind of like, eh.
But I started researching Scott Rowland, and Scott Rowland is not, he did not have the offensive numbers like Mike Schmidt had, no doubt about it.
For sure.
But the more I read other people, baseball writers and baseball players, they talked repeatedly about his unbelievable defense. Mm-hmm. They said he was the greatest third baseman, they had ever seen. And he had, He had 8 Gold Gloves.
Yep. 8-time Gold Gloves from the years, if you want to get specific with it. He won Gold Gloves in 1998. He won a Gold Glove in the year 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 4, 2006, and then once more in 2010.
Okay.
So that's like a pretty lengthy period too of these different years.
Right.
Over he wins his first one in his sophomore year. He's 1998, and then he wins his last one in 2010. Mm-hmm. There's a pretty good gap of time.
And he doesn't have, usually think of your third baseman as the big power guy, right?
For sure.
Arenado and Machado, the current players.
Joe Creedy.
Yeah. Okay. Joe Creedy. He's a fan favorite.
For sure.
Exactly.
He's my favorite.
White Sox, exactly.
Yeah.
But again, looking at the stats, Rowland did have some years. He more than 100 RBIs. He had 110 in 98, 107 in 2001, 2002 he had 110. He had 104 in 2003, 124 in 2004. He had 83 in 2010. So he ended up with 2,077 hits. I know, if you're 3,000 is usually the get-in number if you're not a big power hitter. But he was no slouch offensively. He was a good hitter offensively. It's just that he was so great defensively. I think that's what's going to get him in the Hall of Fame. And I think it doesn't hurt that some of the things I read about him is that he's a great teammate and just generally a really, really decent guy.
Sure.
So I think...
Rookie of the Year in 1997 doesn't hurt either. Yep.
There you go.
Okay, so Rowland's in.
Yes.
Okay, who else?
Okay, I'm going to suggest that Gary Sheffield be in the Hall of Fame.
Sure, I think that one's a pretty popular one for sure.
Yes, I'm not sure if he's going to make it, but I think he definitely deserves to be in. Over 500 home runs. Let's see, over 8 years with 100 or more RBIs. Yes, I'm an RBI guy. I like somebody that can drive in those runs, but 8 years he had 100 more.
1,600 or 2,600 hits, almost 2,700 hits. Yep.
Now, if you check Baseball Reference, if you go down to where it says similar batters, I find this always interesting. Here's 3 names that jump out at you, among others: Chipper Jones, Mickey Mantle, Reggie Jackson.
Not bad.
Not bad.
They're okay.
Not bad.
They're
I'm
right.
not saying that he is on the same level as Reggie Jackson or Mickey Mantle, but I am saying that Gary Sheffield, when he was playing, was one of the most feared hitters in baseball, for just about his entire career.
Mm-hmm. So
he's in.
Now then we get into the, I guess, sort of bogeyman that's been circling a lot of the most recent Hall of Fames, and that's steroids. So...
Well, I do have one more guy in here.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, as it relates to Gary Sheffield.
Yes.
We're going to talk about that. You're the last guy here, too.
Okay.
But, just as really, and I'm not saying I agree or disagree. I just think that, but because Alex Rodriguez is obviously on this ballot,
that's right.
and
that's right.
With all respect to everybody on this ballot, of course, especially Todd Helton, but you look at the numbers of Alex Rodriguez, and I think most casual baseball fans would say, there's no question he's supposed to be in.
Yeah.
But then you get into the steroid thing,
right?
And so steroids attach themselves to Gary Sheffield, rightfully or wrongly.
Here's the thing about Sheffield. I think his case is very interesting. He's one of the few ball players that admitted to doing it. However, he said, and from what I understand, a lot of people believe him. There's no reason not to believe him. He did not know he was taking steroids.
That's
some sort of train that his trainer or something gave him. Okay.
On his surgical scars.
Exactly right.
It was a testosterone-based steroid cream known as the cream. Put it on his legs, thought nothing of it, kept it in my locker.
Right.
Yeah.
Now I know that some people say one of the things that they hold against Sheffield is that he wasn't the greatest outfielder. Okay. Okay, I get it, I guess. But I just think offensively, what he brings to the team, is so important.
Sure.
That he deserves Hall of Fame. And what was his final batting average? Was it 282 or something like that?
This is Gary Sheffield?
Yes, I believe.
Yeah, so Gary Sheffield finished his career with a batting average lifetime of 292.
292.
Yeah, then he finishes his on base with 393, slugging of 514.
Okay, and so you figure he hits 292, almost 300, 8 points shy of 300, over 500 home runs, in an era where pitchers were just bringing it.
Sure.
During the pitching era.
Sure.
So,
he's in?
Yeah, he's in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who then was, you said you have one more guy?
One more, and this is going to surprise you too, and that's Jeff Kent.
Okay. So this is Jeff Kent's last year on the ballot.
Yes.
This is his 10th year. Jeff Kent, he, has been on the last few seasons. He's kind of gained some momentum this year as far as what our trackers can tell. So then why is Kent in?
Kent is in because he too had 8 years with 100 or more RBIs.
Yep.
Okay.
5-time All-Star, 4-time Silver Slugger.
He has more home runs than any other second baseman in history.
Okay.
I think that counts for a lot.
Sure.
Okay. I also think that when you consider that Jeff Kent was playing in San Francisco, which is always a very tough place to hit home runs, Barry Bonds notwithstanding, McCovey and Willie Mays notwithstanding, all right, that you look at some of his home run totals, the 29, 30, whatever it is. If he's playing in another ballpark, instead of 29 home runs a year, he might have more like 45, something like that. And I think with those kinds of numbers, had he been playing somewhere else, he would almost be a shoo-in.
Yeah, it's weird, actually. When you look at Kent, his home run totals, by far, are more in San Francisco than any other ballpark he played in.
Yeah, that is interesting.
He had a few in Houston. He hit 29 in LA when he was a Dodger in 2005.
Yeah, okay.
But the tops for his career in a single season, 29 in his first year in San Francisco in 97. He gets 33 in 2001. He hit 31 in 1998. And then the most he ever hit in his career in one single season was 37 in 2002. And these are all in San Francisco. So it is interesting. He also won the MVP when he was in San Francisco in the year 2000, part of 3 straight All-Star appearances. So, yeah, I mean, it adds credence to the idea that, despite that, heavy air coming in from San Francisco Bay, he's still, mashing home runs.
And, in the years 97 through 2002, with the exception of 1 year, people were always giving him MVP votes.
Yeah. Yeah, he finishes MVP, the top 10 or top, I guess not top 10, but he's in the area of MVP voting. He's got MVP votes every year except for 2001. So, yeah, so you're thinking Jeff Kent's last year on the ballot, this is one that he should get in for.
He should, again. I don't know if he will, but
for sure.
I think he's definitely worthy.
Okay. So then your total ballot is 3 players.
4 players. I've got Todd Helton, I've got Scott Rowland, I've got Gary Sheffield, I've got Jeff Kent.
Okay. Solid. Okay.
No, how about you?
Okay. Fair enough. Switch it.
Okay.
I largely agree. Scott Rowland, I think, is deserving. I think that Todd Helton is on there. I think that Gary Sheffield's on there. So one of the ones I think this is going to be contentious. I think Mark Burley makes a good case.
Wow.
I know, and that's definitely some of that Chicago, growing up with them and watching him pitch is definitely in there. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't.
Okay.
But 3,200 innings pitched. He started 500 games. So, here, I guess this is before I even get into this, pure metrics of it. I think a lot of people think that Andy Pettitte is a pretty strong case for the Hall of Fame. And for me, if Andy Pettitte is a strong case for the Hall of Fame, then Mark Burley should be too, because their stats are very similar. So, Burley and Pettitte, they both start over 500 games. Okay, so Burley starts 518, Pettitte starts 531.
Okay. Interesting.
That's the number of games that's the number of games they appear in. Burley starts just under 500 games. He starts 493 versus Pettitte's 421. Okay, fine. But they start essentially 500 games together. Okay. Pettitte records 3,016 innings. 3,316 innings. And then Burley records 3,283 and a third. So they're almost the same in innings pitched. They have And
here's the thing that's great about Burley too. Innings pitched per year. Look at these totals.
Totally.
239.
Yeah.
230. 245. 236.
Yeah. He's always out there.
He's always out there.
100%.
He's always out there.
Burley gave up 30 more hits in his career than Pettit did.
Okay.
Now, the big thing is that Burley was much less of a strikeout pitcher because Pettit's going to get his 24-48 in that 33-16 innings pitch, which is nuts, versus Burley only gets 18-70. But Burley also walked like 300 less batters. So Burley's a contact guy. You know what I mean? Like, Burley's a guy that's going to get soft contact, and he's also one of the better fielding pitchers you've ever seen in your life. You know what I mean? So for me, I think a lot of people think that Andy Pettit has a really strong case for the Hall of Fame, and I largely agree. But I also think, I don't think he's going to get in. He's definitely a Chicago Hall of Famer, you know what I mean,
Definitely.
and all the ways that matter there.
No doubt.
But like, I think Mark Burley definitely has a legitimate case to get in there.
Yes. Well, the thing, when you are featured in the postseason, you always get more publicity, right?
For sure.
So I know that Pettit, I was reading this the other day, he has 19 postseason wins.
Right.
Okay, and he was often, he was one of the foundation guys of those great Yankee teams that won all those World Series and were always in the playoffs. Pettit was always there, and I think that's why he's valued so highly as a possible Hall of Fame nominee. And I think also he benefited for being with a great team with the Yankees.
For sure.
As we know with the White Sox, you never know what you get with the White Sox, right?
Now, Pettit was also on another team in the World Series that we saw when the White Sox and the Astros matched up.
The Astros, that's right.
Right? And so, Pettit...
too.
That's right. Yep, exactly. And so, this is purely anecdotal. Like, this doesn't really matter, but just curious to think about. Like, so we're talking about these two guys that actually, faced each other in the World Series, right? Or the two teams did, at least. And Pettit, he started one game in the World Series. He threw 6 innings, gave up 8 hits, 3 earned run average after the 2 runs he gave up. Versus Mark Burley in that same World Series, 2005 World Series. Mark Burley pitched one game. He started one game. He appeared in 2. He actually got the save in another game. He went 7 innings and a third total, gave up 7 hits, 4 runs, so 4.91 ERA. Whatever.
Was it Pettit on the mound in Game 2 that we saw?
That started Game 2?
Started Game 2?
I think so. I can tell you in 2 actual seconds.
Very raw, cold, windy, sleet night. Remember that?
Yeah, we were in the very last row
three
of the
rows
cell.
to the very top. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Burley starts that game, Game 2 that you and I went to, and he matched up against Andy Pettit.
There you go.
There it is. So the two guys we're talking about match up in that game. So Burley throws 7 innings of 4-run baseball versus Andy Pettit's 6 innings of 2-run baseball, but Pettit gave up more hits. Burley gave up 7, Pettit gave up 8, and then Burley actually struck out more batters. He struck out 6 to Pettit's 4, too. Anecdotal, who knows, whatever. But it's just interesting that we're talking about these two guys that have such similar careers and actually matched up at the World Series game that you and I went to.
Now, interestingly
That's kind of
enough,
fun.
when you go to similar pitchers, okay, some of the names on here.
For Pettit?
Yes. Catfish Hunter.
Okay.
Oral Hershiser.
Pretty good.
So
then Pettit and Burley, Hall of Fame?
Unfortunately, Andy Pettit has this... he's a bit dogged by this performance enhancing drug issue. He did
admit, Pettit admitted that he took PEDs. He says he did it for 2 games.
Right.
I felt an obligation to get back to my team as soon as possible for this reason and only this reason. For 2 days, I tried human growth hormone. Though it was not against baseball rules, I was not comfortable with what I was doing, so I stopped. That was in 2002 when he first did that. He then used it again in 2004.
Well, what do you think?
Fringe. I think they're both great pitchers, and I think that they're but I think that the thing about the Hall of Fame is, like, there's so many great pitchers, and there's so many great starting pitchers.
That's right.
That I don't think these guys necessarily have the stats that have to get them over that hump. I think that if they got in, I think that they both would be deserving. They're both great pitchers of their era, but compared to the resume of some of the guys that have gone in before them, especially in recent years,
and
you know what I mean?
It's all about the postseason.
For sure.
Right, that's what you remember.
For sure. So then, let's talk about some other guys that people have been voting for. talk about, and there's a lot of first time. Oh, actually, on Burley, quickly, Burley also has a perfect game on his resume.
That's right. That's right.
So then, if somebody throws a perfect game, there's only been a handful of those in the history of the game. Does that automatically mean that you're in consideration for the Hall of Fame?
No.
Okay.
No. But I think if you throw a perfect game, aren't you mentioned on a plaque somewhere in the Hall of Fame?
I think that's true.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So.
Yeah. Okay, something to consider.
Yeah.
So then let's talk about some notable absences on your ballot. So a player that's been getting a lot of votes and has gotten some love recently would be Bobby Abreu.
Good for him. Good
Yeah.
for him.
No?
Very, very good ball player. Really, really good ball player.
Hall of very good player.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Abreu had a 60.2 WAR for his career. He appeared in 2,400 games, /291, 395, 475, 2,400 hits, 288 home runs, 1,300 RBIs. Nothing? Not doing it for you?
Not for Hall of Fame.
Okay. Just like one of those, like what? So I guess what's he missing for you personally? Just that, like,
All right, I'm sorry.
being noted as like one of the best,
Let me
like,
just look it up again. Okay?
for sure.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. 2-time All-Star, won a home run derby.
That means nothing.
Got some MVP
Home run
votes.
derby is nothing. That's
For sure.
fun, but
I think it's fun.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, Josh Hamilton won the home run derby. You know what I mean?
Fair enough, yeah.
Let's see.
Abreu got some MVP votes. Never finished in the top 10, but, he was around the conversation. For sure.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, hey, that's all good. That's why we're talking about it.
Okay. Who else you got? I guess who else you have would be the proper English.
For me, I've got... Actually, you know what? Let's just get into this, too, because this is one of the guys that I've got on my ballot that I think is contentious. So, Alex Rodriguez is, in your mind... Okay, so everybody knows the story. There's the steroids. There's all the controversy. There's, so much that we could talk about relating to Alex Rodriguez's legacy. But from a purely Hall of Fame standpoint, like, he's now been on the ballot for a few years. This is his second time being on the ballot. This is his second go-round. But people have talked about it for so long now. Like, do you think that he is deserving of a Hall of Fame spot?
Well, by his statistics, it's a no-brainer.
Sure.
But by his stats, of course, it is a no. What's he have? 696 home runs?
Yes, exactly.
That's 4 from 700. Who has 700? 4 guys.
Not
right?
many. Yep.
Pujols, Mays, Aaron, and Bonds, right? But A-Rod was suspended 1 year for PED use. And I believe, wasn't he even suspected after that?
There was conversations about it.
Now, if there were if steroids were not an issue, he's a slam dunk.
Sure.
Manny Ramirez is a slam dunk. Look at Manny Ramirez's stats. It's unbelievable, the offensive numbers this guy put up. But
although, I will just say, just throwing it out there, for their careers, and I know people don't like to think of WAR as like the be-all, end-all, but it is a significant stat. Looking at this year's Hall of Fame class, obviously A-Rod runs away with it. 117 WAR. Okay, that's unconscionable. That's ridiculous. The next highest player, tied with Carlos Beltran, is Scott Rowland. Scott Rowland leads this Hall of Fame class with WAR after Manny Ramirez. So after A-Rod. So A-Rod's got 117 WAR for his career. Then Scott Rowland with 70.1, tied with Carlos Beltran. Then Manny Ramirez.
I got to be honest, I'm not a WAR guy.
For sure. I get it.
Very old school with these stats.
I get it.
RBI average, run, that kind of thing.
For sure.
Okay, and I love it. It's the eye test too. But I know this. A lot of people are in love with this. With WAR. And I have to say too, just to go back 1 second, when I look at Bobby Abreu, he's more. I don't mean to be dismissive. He's a great ball player, but I just don't know if he's a Hall of Fame.
Hall of very, very good.
Yes.
Totally.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So then,
but I have to vote no on A-Rod
because of the steroids.
Yes, and I almost feel like the baseball establishment is telling me to vote no. You know what I mean?
I think that's a really good point.
Because if you're not like, again, if you weren't worried about the steroids, Clemens slapped 7 times Cy Young Award.
Yeah,
definitely one of the greatest pitchers of all time. He's a slam dunk. McGuire, Sosa, they're in just like that
for sure.
But, there are a lot of ex-baseball players, that are in the Hall of Fame that don't like the steroid guys.
Yeah.
So I have to kind of give a nod to them and say, well, okay then.
Yep.
I guess I won't vote for A-Rod. I guess I won't vote for Manny Ramirez.
Sure.
So,
And I think it's important, actually, that you mention that the baseball institution doesn't want to. Because
Yes.
it's true that, like, you know, I think... How do I phrase this? Do you think it's fair that that baseball writers want the public to look at that a certain way? Like, I guess I don't want to put too much on, like, these other writers or whatever, because, like, you know, whatever. We're, you know, not trying to, like, get personal, obviously. We don't know how these guys act or think. But, like, it is true that I think part of baseball media makes a really strong attempt to not portray these guys in, like, a positive light.
That's right.
Right? Because of a lot of these scandals. Now, at the same time, though, Alex Rodriguez is sort of on a redemption tour of sorts because he's, like, hosted Sunday Night Baseball.
That's
and
right.
I think that he has really changed the perception of himself in the last couple of years. Does that matter for his Hall of Fame case at all? The fact that he's, like, kind of gotten back in the good graces, not of the league or you know, of the media, but like maybe of the fans themselves necessarily. Is that, like, helpful at all?
Well, you don't have any of these guys that were accused of doing steroids. Have any of them, like, come out and say, you know what, I did it. I wish I had. It was a bad thing. I really, really do.
Guys like Pettit.
Okay,
There's some guys that have done that for sure.
So you know, if the baseball establishment, if you will, would say, you know what, that was a bad time, and we're gonna, like, I don't know if you don't want to put up a separate wing. Maybe you vote some of these guys in, and at the bottom you say, you know, there was some controversy because he was in the steroid.
Throw the asterisk or whatever.
Something like that.
For sure.
I don't know, but it seems that the players are the ones that are greatly, greatly bothered by it. And, you know, so I have to respect them.
Okay. Fair enough.
You know?
So then you've got your ballot. So then mine would be, controversially, Alex Rodriguez, Scott Rowland, Todd Helton, Gary Sheffield, Andy Pettit, Mark Burley, and Jeff Kemp.
Okay.
Those are my guys.
Now, tell me just why. I want to hear your reasons. Why you wouldn't vote Francisco Rodriguez into the Hall of Fame? Is he number 4, which saves?
So this is a good one. Yeah, we can talk about Rodriguez.
And Billy Wagner's on here too.
Yep. So relievers. So relief pitching is interesting because, to your point, I think there is, like, or we talked about this earlier about how, like, starting pitching is so well represented in the Hall of Fame. Like, if you're a good starter or a great starter for a long time, like, you will get in the Hall of Fame, right? We've talked a lot about, like, why that is, but relievers are a little bit harder to quantify, especially when we talk so much about, like, how our perception of relievers have changed in recent years. It's so specialized now. It's so different to how it used to be. I think that there's definitely a strong case to be made for a lot of these relievers, but at the same time, like, so the guys we're talking about right now, K-Rod and Billy Wagner, like, they're fantastic, like, no doubt about it. K-Rod, as you say, 4th all time. I think there's a very good chance that he gets in. Same with Billy Wagner, he's 6th all time. But I think that the hard thing for me when it comes to relief pitchers is, like, there's Mariano Rivera.
That's exactly right.
And then there's Trevor Hoffman. And then there's everybody else.
Right. It's
like even taking just the save numbers themselves out of it, their effectiveness for how long they did it, like, it's so insane to me. Mariano Rivera was maybe the best relief pitcher in baseball for, like, 20 years.
There's no doubt about it. And, you know,
how else can I compare? You know,
it's like if you're talking about the greatest singers of all time. I read somebody that said, you know, well, Frank Sinatra is obviously number 1. The next guy's like number 32. It's that big of a drop.
For sure.
The same thing. You made a great point. Mariano and Trevor Hoffman, they set such a high bar. Okay, so, like, you know, from, like, what, 97 when Mariano had 43 saves, you know, all the way to, like, 2001. When he came into the ninth inning, pretty much, okay, game's over now. There you go, game's over.
Yeah.
It's done. Trevor Hoffman, the same thing.
Yep.
It's just, that is such an unbelievable high bar.
Yeah, so, like, Mariano's got 652 saves. Trevor Hoffman's got 601.
Okay.
The next closest player is Lee Smith, who has 478.
Ex-Cub.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So that's like 120 some odd save difference between 2nd and 3rd place.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
That's crazy.
What do you think? Okay, so, you know, in baseball, when you go into the Hall of Fame, there's a few key numbers, right?
For sure.
Like, if you get 3,000 hits, people start saying, "No, probably going to be Hall of Fame." Used to be 500 home runs. I don't know if that's the same anymore.
Yeah.
Certainly 300 wins. No one's going to get that anymore. I mean,
Verlander's like getting there. Yeah.
Right. But there's a few numbers, you know.
For sure.
What is it with saves? What do you think's the number for saves?
As far as, like,
saves? So it's like, well, Hall of Fame. There you go.
Definitely 500.
Yeah.
Definitely 500.
Okay.
You have to. If you get 500 saves, you're in no question.
Okay.
450 is a good next closest number. So for context, the player that is next closest that's active is Craig Kimbrell. And actually, Kenley Jansen's right there, too. Okay. They've both been in the league for 13 years. Kimbrell has 394 saves, and Kenley Jansen is 391. Now, here's the thing. We're probably not going to see a closer get, like, hundreds of saves very much longer. You know what I mean? Like, because of how specialized baseball has gotten. I mean, you see closers now that pitch in the 8th inning because that's when the best batters come up. And then they have another pitcher come in the 9th because they have the 7, 8, 9 hitters. And then they get the save, even though the closer, you know what I mean? Like, he was the guy that shut down the win or whatever. But, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's so different. It's so specialized. It's not how it used to be, where they said, okay, Mariano's the 9th. We'll figure everything else out.
It also seems to me, I think you're right, it also seems to me that closers these days get burnt out a lot quicker.
Sure.
You don't see guys like Mariano that pitched from, like, 19 years.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It's true.
For a closer.
Well, even Craig Kimbrell, like, no hate to the guy at all, or Jansen, both of them. Like, they both are in their 13th year, which is nothing to sneeze at. Right. Fantastic. But they're not who they used to be.
No, they're not. Exactly.
Right? Like, we've seen Kimbrell and Jansen both take significant steps backwards, and they've been pitching for, like, 70%, 60% as long as Mariano did, or as long as Hoffman did.
Right.
Like, that's crazy.
It is crazy. Yeah.
So that's why it's so hard for me for these relievers. Like, so do K-Rod and Billy Wagner, going back to the original point, do they have arguments to be made? Absolutely. Yeah. No doubt.
Right.
Like, I think that both of them were very, very good relievers for 16 years. Like, that is a significant amount of time being two of the best to do it. But I think it's almost like relievers are almost, in a way, hurt by Mariano and Hoffman. Because the bar has been set so ridiculously high that it's like, how can I even begin to compare these guys? You know what I mean?
Right.
So.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the context of Major League Baseball, were they great pitchers? Absolutely. Are they maybe the greatest relievers of all time? Not while these two exist.
Indeed.
No way.
Yeah.
So.
And they were both like... in their prime, when they had great years, they were great.
Totally.
But, they didn't sustain it for as long as these guys did.
100%. Who else? We got we got a bunch of first-time names. So I think we agree that none of these names I'm about to throw off are guys that we're going to put in this year. But I'm just going to name off all these players that are on their first year in the ballot. Let me know if any of these guys kind of stick out to you.
Well, maybe Dickey sticks out.
Okay, I knew you were going to say this.
Because one of the few video games
I knew we were going to talk about this
is that one of these baseball games used to play. Was it EA Sports or something?
MLB The Show.
MLB The Show.
Yep.
And it used to be such fun pitching as R.A. Dickey because of the way the knuckleball would move. So it was great fun to see you like swing and miss in that game.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, but the only video game I know how to play.
I know that you got all stoked about that one. That's your guy, man.
That was my guy. Yeah.
But okay, so going through a lot of these other first time names, like so Lackey, John Lackey, Jared Weaver, Jacoby Ellsbury, Johnny Peralta, Jason Worth, Matt Cain, J.J. Hardy, Mike Napoli, K-Rod, Francisco Rodriguez. We've got Dickey, Bronson Arroyo, Andre Ether, Houston Street. Any names here that like they are not going on this year? We've already talked about that. Are they like any guys that have like a strong case to make for the future, or are they all kind of like
Abreu?
Yeah,
probably he might have the strongest case.
Okay.
What do you think?
None of these.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of really good players here. Jacoby Ellsbury was always a really solid Yankee for a long time. Very fast. He stole I think he has the major league record for most stolen bases in a game. I think he stole 6 in a game or something ridiculous like that.
Wow.
Matt Cain, multi-time World Series champion with that Giants dynasty, threw a perfect game. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
Bronson Arroyo was very good at the Reds for his time there. Andre Ethier, solid left fielder for a long time. Houston Street, Rocky for a couple of seasons. He was pretty effective closer, pretty effective for the Angels too. But I don't think that any of these guys are like definite Hall of Fame locks. I think they're all players that we enjoyed watching. J.J. Hardy was like Mr. Consistency at shortstop for a long time with the Orioles. Like these are all guys that I think were very solid and they were a lot of fun to watch. But I'm not necessarily sure they're not like that pantheon of like all-time greatest to ever pick up a bat. You know what I mean?
Jimmy Rollins had a great career.
Yeah.
He had 54-55 hits, so 40-something shy of 2,500.
Yep.
Big base stealer, 470 stolen bases.
Yep. Some Gold Gloves.
All-Star games.
3 All-Star games, 4-time Gold Glover.
Only 3 All-Star games.
Yeah, 3 All-Star games,
Okay,
4-time Gold
okay.
Glove. He also won the MVP in 2007.
Okay.
So, you know.
Yeah. So for his era, he was a really, really good player, outstanding player.
Yeah.
Probably not a Hall of Fame player.
For sure.
You know, it's like a lot of these guys are like the Harold Baines situation, okay? And I say this as somebody who grew up watching Harold Baines, outstanding player, clutch guy, okay, all the rest of it. I never really thought he was going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I never really thought he was going to be in the Hall of Fame. So when he was voted to Hall of Fame, good for him, but I was a bit surprised.
For sure.
A little bit surprised.
So these are the same sort of idea.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Cool. I think that pretty much covers the Hall of Fame. Any other last-minute thoughts on this? So one last time. Your list of Hall of Famers for this 2023 ballot.
Todd Helton, Scott Rowland, Gary Sheffield, Jeff Kent.
And then mine are A-Rod, Scott Rowland, Todd Helton, Gary Sheffield, Andy Pettit, and Mark Burley, and Jeff Kent.
Okay, so I just got to ask you this one question. The steroid issue with A-Rod.
Yeah.
You're going to bypass that. Doesn't bother you.
You
I'm
know,
not saying it's right or
no,
wrong.
doesn't not bother me. I think that I just think that, you know, steroids in baseball at that time were so murky. It was such a gray area.
Right.
Like, you know, what was and was not illegal, it's still not 100% clear about what people were supposed to do. You know what I mean? Like,
and here's the thing, too, is when baseball was saved, if you will, by the home run ball.
it's true.
You know, Sosa and McGuire.
Yep.
I don't think...
And Bonds.
And Bonds. I don't think... But I'm talking about the home run chase.
Yeah, for sure.
Before Bonds.
Yeah,
Saturday,
for sure.
But people weren't that bothered by steroids, and the ownership...
Yeah.
And so I
It became a problem when it stopped making money.
Something.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of bothered by it. That's why part of me says it would be much easier if you could say, you know what, forget the steroids, just vote. Well, then A-Rod is a no-brainer.
Of course.
And Manny and all these other guys.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay.
Cool, man.
Cool indeed.
Anything else?
Thanks for having me on, dude. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, bro. It's
Yeah.
good. So,
Yeah.
you know, I just wanted to change it up a little bit. Talk some Hall of Fame with my pops while I'm out here, you know, away from all the hustle and bustle of Denver life for a week or so. So,
Glad the Yankees signed Judge.
yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, it's been a wild offseason. I guess we'll touch on that real quick. As a Yankees fan, how you feeling about 2023, the 2023 season?
I feel good. I would like to see them get another bat in the outfield. Doesn't have to be a power bat. Mm-hmm. I guess as a baseball fan, you always want more.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I love the starting rotation. I think it's going to be a great year.
You worried about the Mets at all? Crosstown rivals?
Well, the Mets, they're
Steve
National
Cohen
League.
emptying his wallet?
They've got to, you know, I hope they do well, you know. I have no animosity towards them at all.
This is the first season in baseball history where every team is going to play every other team at least
This
once.
should be fun.
So we'll see the Rockies and Yankees lock
go.
up at some point.
There you go. Yeah.
Cool. All right, man.
Okay.
Well, as always, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Something a little different, right? A little conversational, hanging out with my pops in this holiday season. So thanks for tuning in and you know, talking some baseball with us. Make sure you follow my editor, my brother, Eamon. We keep it all in the family here, apparently.
Right on.
Right here is his socials on screen, so make sure you give him a look. Follow myself on Twitter and Instagram, Mac Wilcox CBP. Always talking Rockies and always talking wrestling and everything else going on in this wild, you know, life I live. And then make sure you keep your eye on purplerow.com as well as the YouTube site that we're going to start uploading more regularly too. That's the spot for any kind of Rockies news, updates, highlights, articles, transactions, anything else that's coming on. And that's all I got, man. Appreciate you guys tuning in. You got anything you want to sign off with?
Yeah, just Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody, you know.
And go Rockies.
Go Rockies, right on. Go Yanks.
For sure. That's the Go Rockies, though.
All right, right on.
All right, y'all.
Good night, everybody.